He says that social media is wildly out of control. Now, free speech, we all agree with that, but you can't yell fire in the theater, right?
Yes, sir.
Free speech doesn't allow you to go online and groom a child for sexual.
No, it does not.
Okay, free speech doesn't allow you to go on the internet and basically incite somebody to kill another person, right?
Absolutely not.
So if it's illegal offline, it should be illegal online, agreed? Whatever the law is.
Yes, sir.
Just because you're online doesn't give you a get out of jail free card.
No, sir.
So if a parent is worried about a child being bullied on a website, what rights do they have under U.S. law?
We have to balance the rights, as you said, Senator, of free speech versus those that encroach
Is there
upon
any
violence.
law that can shut down one of these sites for bullying children or allow sexual predators on the site?
We are able to attack certain sites on the dark web. When it comes to the open internet infrastructure system, we have to reach a threshold to attack a company's position that only subscribes to violence.
Can the parents sue that company?
They can.
They can?
They can sue not the social media companies.
That's what I'm talking about.
They can sue the companies.
No, I'm talking about the social media company that gives life to this behavior.
No, you're referring to Section 230, sir.
Yeah. Would you advocate a sunsetting of Section 230 to bring more liability to the companies who send this stuff out?
I've advocated for that for years.
All right. We need to do this, folks. These companies are taking content that it makes you sick, that could get you killed, get you poisoned, and there's nothing we can do about it under our law. A person can do about it because of Section 230. So if your child is being sexually groomed online or bullied online, and you go to the social media company and ask them to take it down, they refuse, you have like zero rights. How many images of sexually exploited children are purveyed every year on social media sites?
The number is astronomical. And Senator, if I can just add one step to that analysis.
Please.
It's not just what's on social media that is quote unquote real. It's the introduction of artificial intelligence and
Right.
generative AI that is creating even more child sexually abused material and even more sexually violent acts online and mimicking people.
Would you say that the way social media is structured today, really no accountability, 36 million images in 2023 of sexually exploited children, that this is a public health hazard?
It is.
Would you say that it's a mental health problem, particularly for younger people?
It absolutely is.
Do you agree that some of these sites are designed to be addictive?
I think not only are some of these sites designed to be addictive, unfortunately, the reality is some of these sites are designed to generate income, and many people are generating income based on this illegal trade.
Do you think it's now time for America to deal with this problem?
I'm all in. I have been all in, and I'm happy to work with Congress to do so.
Well, I tell you what, having the FBI director all in is great news for me, and I hope the committee will respond and that we'll be all in, trying to fix a problem that I think is doing a lot of damage to our country. When it comes to John Bolton, was there new evidence involved in the raid on his home?
Sir, that investigation is very much ongoing. As you know, there was a raid of his house pursuant to a legal
Was there a
search
warrant obtained to go in?
Absolutely, sir.
Okay. All right.
We're looking to have that search warrant unsealed
Okay.
at the
Yeah,
appropriate
I
time.
think that would be good, quite frankly. In December 2023, Director Wray said he sees blinking lights everywhere regarding to foreign terrorist threats against our homeland. How would you characterize the state of threats to our homeland by foreign terrorist groups?
Foreign terrorist organizations have adapted and started utilizing online platforms, and so is the FBI. And so while they are adapting and expanding how they harm our country, we have as well. They have not stopped. There's been a resurgence in places like West Africa and elsewhere of foreign terrorist organizations, and also the newly emboldened drug trafficking organizations in Mexico. It's going to take a whole of government approach to get.
Does Hezbollah fall within that group?
Yes, sir.
So Hezbollah is involved in not only terrorism, but narco-terrorism?
Yes, sir.
So do you consider Hezbollah a threat to the United States?
Absolutely.
All right, finally, Do you have enough people
Sorry.
to do all this? Do you need more people? You're involved in a lot of things, and the numbers speak for themselves. You have FBI agents helping here in Washington, D.C. You have FBI agents helping in illegal immigration. That's good. You've got a chance here to tell us if you need more people. Seems to me that threat level of this country is pretty high right now. You got thousands of domestic terrorism cases. How many are being investigated?
I think 3,500 off the top of my head.
3,500, okay. Anyway, it seems your plate's pretty full. I would urge you to get with your people, and if you think you need more people, now's the time to do it. It would be a shame to miss an opportunity to plus up the FBI if the threats justified it. Will you look?
I will look, sir.
Okay, but are you comfortable you have enough people right now?
Right now, I'm comfortable with the reallocation of agents and personnel outside of Washington, D.C. and plussing up states like South Carolina in double-digit numbers,
Okay.
and I'll get back with my team on this one.
Thank you for your service.
Senator Whitehouse.
Boy, is my timing good.
It is very good.
Director Patel, welcome.
Thank you, sir.
When you were here for your confirmation, we talked about your so-called enemies list. It appears to me that there have been adverse actions of various kinds taken against about 20 of the 60 people on your enemies list. You've been in office for 7 months. At that rate, you've got 14 months until you've hit all 60. Can you explain that?
Again, that is an entirely inaccurate presupposition. I do not have an enemies list. You can continue to characterize it as you wish. The only actions we take, generally speaking, for personnel at the FBI are ones based on merit and qualification and your ability to uphold your constitutional duty. You fall short, you don't work there anymore.
Well, there was a list. You don't like it to be called an enemies list, and it had about 60 names, and about 20 have had an adverse action. So those are, I think, pretty clear facts. Let me move on to your grand jury testimony, which we also talked about when you were here. I think you indicated that you understood that a witness in the grand jury is free to discuss afterwards whatever they told the grand jury. And you then went on to suggest, saying, I can't go into court orders granted by the DC District Chief Judge, and you want me to violate a court order. In those remarks, you fairly plainly suggested that there was a court order of some kind that somehow restricted or limited your ability to discuss your own testimony to that grand jury. Since then, that chief judge that you mentioned, Judge Boasberg, has written, and I'm quoting him here, Federal Rule of Criminal Procedure 6E allows witnesses like Patel to divulge the contents of their testimony, meaning that nothing was preventing him from doing so before the committee. Can we confirm here today that there is no court order of any kind that limits your ability as a witness before the grand jury to discuss your own testimony to that grand jury?
We can confirm that pursuant to my action, that grand jury testimony has been released, the transcript.
Let's, in what forum was it released, may I ask?
Publicly.
Okay, we'll check on that. The FBI does background investigations. In the case of a U.S. attorney, Janine Pirro, it has come to light that in a civil proceeding, that Fox News executives, prior to her confirmation, called her I'm quoting here, a reckless maniac who makes, quote, insane comments, and said, I don't trust her to be responsible, and noted her penchant for what they called random conspiracy theories on weird internet sites. My question to you is, did that turn up in her background investigation?
For any background investigation, Senator, we do not discuss those publicly. And for every background investigation, when there's an adjudication, it is not made by me. It is made by the career professionals who run the inspection division and background check system.
Do you know if that information was found? You see, we're an oversight body here, and there are really three possibilities here. One is that the FBI background investigation didn't find that stuff. That's worth noting because these investigations, full field background investigations, are supposed to find that stuff. That's possibility one. Possibility two is that the FBI did in fact find that information and then did not report it to the administration or to the committee. And the third is that you found it, you reported it to the administration, and they went ahead with her nomination knowing that she had been described as a reckless maniac who made insane comments, who wasn't trusted by colleagues to be responsible, and who had a penchant for random conspiracy theories on weird internet sites. Are you saying that this committee does not have any authority or reason to look into which of those things is true?
This committee can look into anything it wishes. I'm telling you that the background investigations that are done by the HRD division are done by career individuals. They do not report the details of those to me. They adjudicate those independently and individually. That's how it's always been done.
What happened during the pause of FBI background investigations that was alleged in the complaint against you and the FBI by the FBI agents who were terminated? On February 12th, Emil Bovee directed the FBI, quote, to pause any FBI background investigations of Trump nominees until Patel was confirmed, which happened on February 20th, is the general description of what they alleged. Why, do you know, were background investigations paused? Was it so material like this could be scrubbed out of them? And have they been resumed without that pause fully and normally after your arrival on February 20th?
I can speak to the time period since I got there. Background investigations have been ongoing across the board at the FBI.
Why was the pause, do you know?
I was not there.
Wasn't explained to you when you got there? Oh, by the way, boss, they've had an 8-day pause on background investigations. You think that would be something that would be explained to you at some point?
Again, I leave it to the men and women at the HRD division to run background investigations. I do not interfere with them.
I get that. But what I don't get is whether you were told about that pause, and why would you not be told about that pause?
I don't recall that, sir.
All right. The allegation also relates that part of the employee review of senior staff was whether or not they voted for Kamala Harris in the 2024 election. Since when is who you voted for a proper question for agents to be asked?
I don't know what allegation you're referring to, Senator. If it's from an ongoing matter in litigation, I can't discuss that. But what I can discuss is I can only speak to the FBI's background investigations. There are other background investigations conducted across the government. I can only speak to
So
mine.
just to clarify, I'm not talking about the FBI full field background investigations. I'm talking about internal employee reviews for promotion, for termination, for job actions of various kinds. And my question to you is it now the policy of the FBI to ask agents who they voted for, and since when is who agents voted for a proper question for the FBI to ask?
Taking those in reverse order, it's not a proper question, and it's improper to allege that I'm doing that. And also, at the FBI specifically, under my leadership, we do not ask who you voted for. And just one correction for the record, if I may, Senator, it's Security Division that runs background investigations, not HRD.
Okay. I'll accept that correction. And in the event that we cannot locate your grand jury transcript, just expect a question for the record that will give you the chance to either provide that transcript again if it had been previously provided, or to make the statement that Grand Jury Rule 6E allows you, to the best of your recollection, truthfully, about what it is that you told that grand jury. Do you understand that?
That's why I wanted the transcript released, and we'll get it to you, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Chairman.
I think I want to take an opportunity when we hear about your political weaponization to remind my Democratic colleagues that what's happened the last decade, federal law enforcement, intelligence community, even when Trump was president, has thrown everything at him. They've even gone after his associates and Republican Party organizations. One investigation after another, one prosecution after another. I use examples you've heard me already say today: Crossfire Hurricane and Arctic Frost. These were all built on defective foundations of political bias. And then we released the Clinton Index and the Durham Index and the FBI's failures to investigate. So I've been acquainted with this because I've been trying to get to the bottom of it, and we had to get a new FBI director to get all this information, Senator Cornyn.
Director Patel, welcome. Thank you for your willingness to serve in this very challenging position. How many people work for the FBI today?
Approximately 36,500, give or take.
I've always wondered whether an organization that big and that diffused all across the nation was actually capable of being managed. Have you experienced any surprises in terms of the, as the director, in terms of your management of the organization?
In my experience, Senator, the leaders in the field are supposed to lead. So we have empowered and we've changed the structural operation of the FBI to empower SACs in the 56 field office, 55, 56 come 1 October, to lead the mission. We've also empowered the respective assistant directors and operational directors to lead the mission. That is how you manage 36,500, 37,000 people. No one or two people can do it. And that's been the transition, is the power structure is being pushed out to the field operations.
It sounds like a very practical way to approach it. And how is morale?
Morale, when I travel around the country, in my experience, has never been higher. The FBI and the police officers that we worked hand in glove with across this country are excited to do the work. And the stats that I'm citing are no achievement of mine. The stats that I'm citing in the 7 months that I've been there, such as a 42% increase in cyber arrests alone this year, is because the men and women at the FBI have been empowered in the field. They want to do the work. They're getting the opportunity to do the work. And with our great partners in the respective states like Texas, and where we just returned a top 10 most wanted fugitive in Cindy Singh, are getting the ability to make those prosecutions a reality.
By the way, Senator Durbin was asking about polygraphs. Aren't polygraphs a standard part of the standard test given to people with security clearances across the intelligence community
They are.
as a condition to maintaining your security clearance?
I believe they are.
Speaking of intelligence, one of the things that I've wondered about over time is, the FBI is a premier law enforcement agency in the nation, but you also have other important responsibilities in counterintelligence. And there's been different debates or people wondering whether, including me, whether that's an appropriate role for the FBI to play. And I guess the most challenging part of that is if it's not at the FBI, where would it go? But can you, given your background, I know as working on the HPSI and your intelligence background, can you talk a little bit about what you think about the counterintelligence role of the FBI agents and how that's working, whether you think it's performing the way it should, or whether there are other changes or reforms need to be made in order to improve its functioning? As you know, the threats from our adversary nations are just proliferating every day. So what do you think?
The espionage activities of our adversaries have never been so high, and I think the counterintelligence mission is properly housed within the FBI because we've invested with those authorities for Congress, and I believe that mission set is working. And if I can, sir, since January 20th of this year, the FBI has made 55 arrests on the counterintelligence mission alone. That's a 30% increase in CI arrests from the same time year-to-date last year. We've arrested 33% increase in PRC counterintelligence arrests, an 83% increase in Russia counterintelligence arrests from the same time last year, then a 60% increase on Iran counterintelligence arrests from the same time period last year. So we are already on total exceeding the entirety of the number of arrests from the previous year on counterintelligence matters across the board. And in my opinion, the FBI is the only agency that can do it. Now, we work with the interagency to do it, and we need them, but we have the mission set.
Thank you. You know, sometimes I wonder whether we sort of repeat the way we do things because we've always done it that way. And I'm getting up to building up to this issue of the narco trafficking and what President Trump has ordered the Defense Department to do in terms of to take out some of these transnational criminal organizations that are importing poison into the United States and responsible for killing tens of thousands of Americans, maybe hundreds of thousands of Americans over time. Do you think a law enforcement model for dealing with these narco traffickers is adequate to deal with the threat? Or do you think we need to start thinking about this in maybe new and different ways? Obviously, we're not engaged in a war per se, although it is a war metaphorically. And the law enforcement model seems to be not working from the standpoint of dealing with the volume of the threat and the magnitude of the threat. Do you think we need to start thinking about how do we deal within constitutional legal parameters to deal with this problem in a different way to be more effective in protecting the American people?
Absolutely. And the way to analogize this and why I've advocated for the designation, and I'm thankful that the Trump administration has designated these cartels and narco traffickers as foreign terrorist organizations, is because we must treat them like the foreign terrorist organizations post 9/11. We must treat them like the Al-Qaedas of the world because that's how we're operating. And just treating them with law enforcement capabilities alone was wholly insufficient to wipe out the targets in their entirety. They always had the next man up philosophy. If you take out the leader, they got 10 guys behind him. But in order to eliminate, and that's the key, eliminate the drug trade, and eliminate the pouring into this country of narcotics, we have to use authorities at the Department of War and the intelligence community to go after the threat like we did terrorists when we were manhunting them. And now we have that ability, and we're seeing that in live time, whether it's on the strike on the boat or going down into Mexico and working with our Mexican authorities with these intelligence assets to say we've located not just the person in charge, the cadre in charge, but the entire network. And we are now able to dismantle that entire network. It's going to take time. The manhunt after 9/11 took some years, and this is going to be a years-long mission.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned the counterterrorism mission because we've had a lot of experience, the U.S. government writ large, with dealing with terrorism in the Middle East and elsewhere. And obviously, some of our friends and allies, like Mexico, for example, are very sensitive about sovereignty and being able to control what happens on their territory. But yet we're beginning to see more and more cooperation, as you point out, in that regard. And so in your opinion, has the counterterrorism model, have the lessons learned by the U.S. government writ large, are they being aggressively applied? Are there other things we need to do to make sure that those skills, those lessons learned are applied more broadly to the threat of narco trafficking?
I can only speak to the FBI. We are applying all of them to our counter, the CT mission set to the CN mission set, and we're using the new authorities given to our intelligence community partners in the Department of War to combine these collective efforts and in a new way, meeting together and creating an interagency process that gets after the threat dynamic. And whether that's in a kill operation, a capture operation, a surrender operation, or a host nation takedown, like we did with the counterterrorism mission sets in Afghanistan, in Iraq, and Pakistan, and elsewhere, we are applying that to the drug traffickers in Mexico and Venezuela and Colombia.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We have seen too much political violence in this country. We all know that. Just last week, Director, your friend Charlie Kirk was gunned down on a college campus. I'm sorry for your loss. In Minnesota, only 2 months ago, a madman took the life of my friends, Melissa and Mark Hortman, shot Senator John Hoffman and his wife Yvette a combined 17 times. And evidence indicates that he would have killed a lot more if law enforcement hadn't intervened. Just last month in my state, we were again shook to the core when little kids were shot down through stained glass windows in Annunciation Catholic Church in Minneapolis. And while the victims weren't politicians in this case, they were 6-year-olds and 8-year-olds, the manifesto that the shooter left behind was political. But in the words of your own federal law enforcement, this person was an all-purpose hater. Went after blacks, Hispanics, the president, Muslims, Jews, nearly everyone. And this happened during the first Mass of the year for these kids. They were excited to see their friends, meet their new teachers, and 2 children, 8-year-old Fletcher Merkel, 10-year-old Harper Moisky, were murdered. 21 other people injured, some of the kids, 18 kids, severely. Fletcher was just starting 3rd grade. He loved his family, his friends. He loved fishing and cooking, in his dad's words, any sport he was allowed to play. Harper, the other child, we celebrated her life this Sunday, thousands of people. Her parents described her as bright, joyful, and a deeply loved 10-year-old whose laughter, kindness, and spirit touched everyone that she knew. We've heard the words of young children who were saved because 12-year-olds laid on top of them, or a kid with disabilities who was paralyzed, whose teacher pulled him out of the wheelchair, threw him under the pew, and laid on top of him. We do thank the local FBI director and the local U.S. Attorney's Office for their work in both of these cases, the Hortman case and this. But I did want to focus on one local law enforcement moment that I'm not sure has made with all the news going on in Minnesota. When the first 911 call, and you've heard about other places where this waited and waited, the first 911 call was made at 8:27 a.m. The first officer was on the scene just 4 minutes later, local Minneapolis police, at 8:31 a.m. The Chief O'Hara, shared with me the actual numbers. Listen to this. Over 20 people were in ambulances just 14 minutes, all of them, after the police got on the scene. 14 minutes after the first call. Tourniquets, stretchers, and they got them all to Hennepin County Medical Center or Minneapolis Children's Hospital. And I think it is worth looking at what happened there, because one of the dads whose daughter was severely injured, still in the hospital, that I met on Sunday, told me that there is absolutely no way his beautiful daughter would have survived if police hadn't been there. So it is worth looking at for all of us. So my focus on behalf of these parents, because I promised I would do this on Sunday, was just to figure out how we can do anything to stop this from happening again. So expanded background checks, ghost gun bans, every shooting is different. Raising the minimum age to purchase an assault weapon, even if we're not going to ban them. I favor banning them, but that's one idea that's out there when so many of these shootings are people who are 18, 19, 20, 21. The one at Annunciation Church was 23. Both shooters in Uvalde and Buffalo had just turned 18 when they purchased the assault weapon bans. I'm not saying any one of these things would prevent every single shooting, but I really ask everyone to look at these. We also need to tackle social media, and I really did appreciate Senator Graham's questions. I think we have to protect free speech and not engage in censorship. But for years, I have supported repealing Section 230, which was made when these companies were little companies starting up in garages. And I think it is one way to get at making this better environment online and preventing violence. So my first question is on the assault weapon ban. Do you think that would be helpful in reducing gun deaths, Director?
Senator, if I may, I want to answer the question, but thank you for your remarks, especially it relates to my friend Charlie, and I share and relay my remarks, my sentiments to you. Minnesota has suffered untold tragedy in these last few months, and whatever creativity we can use to eliminate even just one shooting, one horrific death, I am in favor of engaging with Congress fully to do. I don't have the answers. I don't know what will eliminate it in its entirety, but I'm willing to engage and explore new ways with you, Senator.
Okay, thank you. And so, assault weapon ban. What do you think?
Senator, I think there are instances on this legislation that could prevent future attacks, but I'm not going to weigh into the creation of legislation.
Could you also look at, and I favor just assault weapon ban, not getting these guns in the hands of people that shouldn't have them, but could you look at the numbers on the ages?
Yes.
Because from 18, even going from 18 to 21, which wouldn't have prevented the shooter in Annunciation Church from purchasing that gun. He purchased several the same day. Over 100 rounds were fired from the assault weapon through the stained glass windows. So if you went up to 25, it would have stopped that immediate purchase and probably saved the lives of these kids. But if you go to 21, that is the same age that already applies to purchasing handguns from federally licensed dealers. So I prefer another approach, but I was hoping that our Republican colleagues would at least look at that, given Uvalde, Buffalo, and some of these other mass shootings, trying to be practical, but thinking that it could make a major difference. Strengthening background checks, could you also look at that? And then banning ghost guns and bump stocks. What do you think of that?
So, Senator, you're talking to my heart here on one of the core missions at the FBI, which is our CJIS facility in Winchester, Virginia, which is our hub for our NICS checks, our NCICs, our capabilities on when we have, I think it's 19,000 state and local community law enforcement come to us for these background checks. We're trying to make that processing as fast as we can so we can get them real-time information. I think we have a 93% clearance rate in 15 minutes as it relates to ghost guns, but we can do better.
All right, well, just if you could get back to me on all those and talk to the White House. Threats against elected officials have increased exponentially. Members of Congress received more than 9,000 threats last year, up from 1,600 in 2016. There's been a lot of talk about the rhetoric and the like. And if we want to move forward on things like Section 230, or even look if we can do anything on guns, I do think we're going to have to be honest about this all-purpose hater issue, and it has bothered me, this thing, we're going to go after this group, we're going to have to go after this group. I just want to, for the record, show that the murder of Speaker Hortman and her husband, it was Democratic lawmakers on his list. He went to the ones whose addresses he had, by the way. Planned Parenthood was on the list, as were businesses and law firms. Doctors. I already mentioned the ones with the Catholic Church shooting. So it is not just, as the radicals on the left, what's a quote from the president, are the problems or destructive movement of left-wing extremism that Vice President Vance said. According to the Anti-Defamation League last year, all the murders were committed. And I'm not actually going to say this because I don't even want to go left-right with this, but you can imagine it wasn't from the left. Cato Institute, conservative think tank, published a study just last week that found from terrorists from the right were responsible for 6 times more deaths than people from the left. I actually don't want to go tit for tat on this, but what I am asking for is that this rhetoric of blaming one side or the other stop, if you could convey that to the president, and that we actually work on things that are solutions. So could you commit to me, Mr. Patel, Director Patel, that you will do that?
Absolutely, Senator.
Okay, thank you. Last, you were asked about social media, and I will put some more questions on the record about that. I think we could make major movement on that. The local FBI helped when the city of St. Paul was a victim of a cyber attack, and I'm concerned about some of the cyber attack cuts. I'll ask you that on the record. AI, I'm glad you raised that. I think we have to do more, but also including election interference because they're using AI videos. I just had one happen in this very committee on me, and I just think they're going to start using it in democracy, election. They could be foreign. Do you think some of this is foreign entities, Mr. Patel?
Generally speaking, we have traced a lot of this to loose groups overseas that don't have any sort of central cluster.
There's going to be a lot on you then. And then last, I'll put on the record just my concern about protecting journalists. The new guidance that came out of the department. Have you deployed any FBI resources to investigate members of the media for activities related to news gathering, reporting, or reporting on government whistleblowers, something near and dear to the chairman's heart?
The only time we would involve an investigation of a journalist if they've conducted or committed an allegation of separate criminal activity, most prominently leaks of classified information.
Thank you.
Senator Hawley.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Director Patel, good to see you. Thank you for being here. You're leading the FBI at a very critical time for that agency and also a critical time for our country. And I want to start by talking to you about the tide of violence that we have seen, ideological violence against people of faith, particularly Christians. You just think here, take a rough catalog. Just in the last couple of years, we've seen shooting at the Covenant School, Christian school in Nashville. We've seen school shooting at the Annunciation School. We've seen church shootings multiply. We've seen acts of crime and violence, vandalism, arson against churches and parishes all across the country. And then, of course, last week, Charlie Kirk, who said, "I want to be remembered for my courage, for my faith," was shot on a college campus. Let me just start with the assassination of Charlie Kirk. Is the FBI, and I appreciate the tremendous work the FBI has done in this investigation, is the FBI investigating the Kirk assassination as part of this broader pattern of anti-religious, anti-Christian violence?
We are investigating Charlie's assassination fully and completely and running out every lead related to any allegation of broader violence, and we're producing results on that we'll disclose when appropriate.
Good. I'm glad to hear that. Let me just ask you a few questions about that if I could. Sure. Reports have suggested that the FBI is investigating a broader network of groups that may have had some knowledge of the shooter's plans. Can you give us any details on that, following up what you've already said in public? How's the FBI working to find other potential accomplices, folks who may have known about the shooter's plans, folks who may have encouraged him? Any update on any of that?
So in terms of what we do for an interrogation perspective, we go and reach out to the family and community immediately. And we've conducted those investigations and interrogations with local law enforcement, and we're continuing to do that because those closest to the suspect are going to hopefully know the most about the suspect and his beliefs and his ideology. On top of that, unfortunately, it has been leaked that there was a Discord chat, and for those unfamiliar with it, it's a gaming chat room online that the suspect participated in. So what we're doing, we've already done, is serve legal process, not just on Discord, so that the information we gathered is sustained and held in a evidentiary posture that we could use in prosecution should it be decided to do so. And we're also going to be investigating anyone and everyone involved in that Discord chat.
Okay, very good. I see the public reports that the Discord thread had as many as 20 additional users. It sounds like you're trying to run down all of that to see if that's accurate, who else may have been on that thread, what they may have known. Is that fair to say?
It's a lot more than that, and we're running them all down.
It's a lot more than 20?
Yes, sir.
And you're running all of that to ground?
Every single one.
Yeah, fantastic. Let me just turn to the broader question here of anti-religious, anti-Christian violence. Let me just give you a few stats that I'm sure that you're all too familiar with. Every person of faith in America certainly is. Major report this past year found that there have been over 400 instances of hostility against churches in the United States in the year 2024. Those included arsons, bomb threats, shootings, and firearm incidents. Another organizational report found that there were 500 attacks on Catholic parishes alone. So that number 415, that's all Christian churches in 2024. Another organization found 500 separate attacks on just Catholic parishes since May of 2020. Of course, we have the Covenant school shooting, the Annunciation school shooting in Minnesota, where 2 children were shot dead as they were praying in a pew. Here's my question. What is the FBI doing to take on this rising tide of violence that seems to be motivated by anti-religious hatred?
Specifically, sir, we've have 60 anti-Catholic hate crime incidences reported to us that are being investigated. Publicly, I can tell you we have 5 hate crime investigations with anti-Catholic bias ongoing currently in the states, in the cities of Kansas City, Louisville, Houston, Nashville, and Richmond. That's what I can say publicly. But any ideologically based attack against any faith, as a man of faith myself, will not be tolerated, and the full resources of the FBI are committed to all of it.
Are you investigating any domestic cells that instigate or encourage or fund or in any way support attacks on churches or other houses of worship?
Senator, you raised an incredibly important point that most people don't look at. I've always said we follow the money, and whether it's terrorism or attacks based on ideology or attacks on institutions of faith or people of faith, someone's paying for it, and we are reverse tracing those steps. We are not stopping at the perpetrator themselves. We are reverse engineering to hold those accountable in our investigations to who funded them and knowingly funded them, and we will bring the appropriate steps against them with our partners at DOJ.
Good. I'm glad to hear that. We look forward to hearing reports on that progress. Yeah.
Sorry about that.
Let me just ask you this in the same vein, Director. Since the Dobbs decision, the FBI has advertised $25,000 rewards for information on attacks on abortion clinics. Will the FBI similarly offer rewards for information on attacks of houses of worship?
Yes, when it is appropriate, the rewards are any reward, whether it's an attack on a house of faith or on a homicide or whatever, is determined by a group within the FBI, but we will work with them to make sure that rewards of monetary value are put out for all ideologically based attacks.
Good. You just rattled off some statistics, which I was glad to hear, about the number of investigations you have open, the incidents you're tracking against Christians, against houses of worship. Let me just ask you if you consider designating a senior official as a liaison to houses of worship, to Christian other religious organizations, to publish metrics on investigations and arrests related to church attacks, church threats, vandalism, arson, etc. Will you set up a system for liaising and then reporting so that everybody can see, this committee and the public can see just how many attacks we're talking about, just what the level of threat and violence is and what the FBI is doing to combat it?
Senator, you're speaking my language. The private-public sector partnership on this specific issue, just like the other ones we've talked about, is equally transformative to finding those involved in these criminal activities. And with your assistance, I would ask you if you're able to identify someone who's an expert in that area, we will work with them. We will take their information, because as great as the FBI is, we're only as good as the information we can get, and we don't have the reach that the private sector does in some of these areas.
Very good. Happy to help on that. Let me ask you about something specific to the FBI, because sadly, as you know, the FBI, when it comes to anti-religious animus, has been part of the problem before you got to this agency. And I know that you remember the infamous memo generated by the FBI that attempted to recruit informants in houses of worship, in particular in Catholic parishes. Your predecessor testified when this information, I just want to reiterate, this memo became public because of a whistleblower. It was not turned over to this committee. It was not disclosed to this committee. In fact, we were told it didn't exist, and then a whistleblower published it, showing that indeed the FBI had recruited informants, attempted to, into Catholic parishes. Your predecessor then testified, sitting right where you are today, he testified that this, I'm going to quote, was a single product by a single field office, end quote. That was a lie. Because we then had additional whistleblowers come forward and say, no, actually, multiple field offices contributed to the drafting of the report. And indeed, there was a second anti-Catholic memo that the FBI generated. And indeed, those memos were distributed to over 1,000 FBI agents across the country. You know all of this. You and I talked about it when you were here for your confirmation hearing back in January. I just want to follow up and see, have you been able to determine how this memo got written and distributed? How is it that the Federal Bureau of Investigation came to be recruiting informants in Christian churches in this country?
Senator, we did dig in, and we are doing our investigation simultaneously with Congress. And just to put it in perspective, we've provided 700 documents on the Richmond Catholic memo specifically to this committee, whereas my predecessor provided 19 pages. And not only that, but we looked into how the source recruitment structure at the FBI was conducted during this time. And we made adjustments and permanent fixes to ensure that sources are not put into houses of worship unless there is an actual ongoing criminal or international terrorism threat. We will not use sources at this FBI to investigate and cull information just for the sake of culling information in houses of worship.
Has anybody been fired for this?
There have been terminations related to this and resignations.
Good. There need to be, because if this is going to be standard at the FBI, nobody can trust the FBI. You want to talk about violating the First Amendment? This has got First Amendment violation written all over it. It's one of the most revolting chapters in the FBI's history. And considering what we're seeing more broadly in terms of the acts of violence against people of faith, this has absolutely got to end. The FBI has to lead the way. So I count on you to do that, Director. Let me just, in the minute or so that I have remaining, let me just shift gears and ask you about something else you said earlier. You said that protecting our youth is maybe the FBI's top priority. It's great to hear. Let me ask you about the role of AI chatbots in that, which you've talked about a little bit already today. Are you investigating any cases of AI-generated child sex abuse material? You issued a PSA earlier this year warning that synthetic child sex abuse material, that's where the AI generates it using maybe a real kid's image, but then generates sex material, sex abuse material. You warned that that was illegal under federal law. Is the FBI investigating any instances of this synthetic CSAM material generated by AI that you could speak to?
We are investigating dozens of those matters because, let me just say this, as far as the FBI is concerned, generative AI that produces CSAM, child sexual abuse material, under our investigative authorities is treated as equally as if it were actual child sexual abuse material. There's no difference for me in the FBI on this.
Let me just ask you one other thing in this vein. I'm sure you've seen the reporting that Meta's AI rules, their own internal guidelines, allowed their chatbots to have sensual, that's their word, sensual conversations with children. We've had instances, multiple instances of children, minors, taking their own lives at the behest of chatbots that instructed them with specificity on how to do it. What's the FBI's role here in investigating what is going on with these chatbots, with these AI companies encouraging? I mean, listen, if an actual person did that, we would say that's grooming. We would say that's child abuse. These companies are doing it. Their own guidelines allow it. What can we do about that?
You're referring to NVE, nihilistic violent extremism, and the 764. It has been made a priority of the FBI because they are targeting children, and these chatbots and these generative AI are getting coupled with actual humans who are using them and releasing them because they can do the work faster and quicker than humans can and get into spaces like social media where humans have a difficulty in engaging. And what we're doing is treating any extension of generative AI as the criminal themselves. And we have, I think, I've got to get the number back to you, but over 1,000 investigations related to NVE. We've had numerous takedowns and arrests of 764 individuals. And we are educating, this may be the most important part, I'm directly engaging with the social media and media companies, the internet service providers, to find a way to shut down. There's nothing I can do at the FBI to force them to shut it down, but work with you in Congress to find a way to work with our partners to get that shut down permanently.
Thank
Senator
you.
Coons.
Thank you, Chairman Grassley. Thank you, Chairman, for calling this hearing. I'm grateful we're continuing this committee's long tradition of oversight, and in particularly today, oversight of the FBI. Director Patel, thank you for being here. There's a number of issues I hope that we can speak to. I want to start by reading something you said to me during your confirmation hearing under oath. I have no interest, no desire, and will not, if confirmed, go backwards. There will be no politicization at the FBI. Then you looked me in the eyes and said there will be no retribution actions taken by the FBI should I be confirmed as director. I told you that in your office. I tell you that again today. I'm concerned that that's not what's happened, that since you took over as director, you've forced out senior leaders across the Bureau, in particular targeting those that worked on investigations of President Trump. The former acting director has just sued you for firing him for political reasons. So did a leader in the DC field office. And the well-respected leader of the Salt Lake City office was pushed out last month, leaving that office shorthanded at a particularly difficult time. I'm worried that these actions compromise the Bureau's ability to keep Americans safe. Hundreds of agents have resigned. You are lowering application standards to fill vacancies. You've reassigned large numbers of agents to work on immigration and street crime, issues other law enforcement agencies can handle, perhaps more effectively with the FBI, but I'm concerned that this compromises the Bureau's ability to address national security risks, uniquely its capability. In fact, you've shut down the Office of Integrity and Compliance, which makes sure that agents act in a lawful and ethical way, and reassign staff away from domestic terrorism investigations exactly at a moment I think we are all concerned about it. I also have to ask, you came before the Appropriations Committee in May and told us you wanted a $500 million budget cut for the FBI, literally an effort to defund the police. I am grateful for the work of the men and women of the FBI. They've done great work this year in Delaware, partnering with the Dover Police Department to support human trafficking victims, partnering with the Middletown Police Department on armed robbery and carjacking. And it's urgent, I think, that we fix the direction and the prioritization within the FBI. And I wish we could focus on those efforts today. But I'm seeing an FBI leadership more focused on social media clout and on political revenge than on fighting crime. Director, have you ever ordered that an FBI employee be terminated because he or she worked on an investigation into President Trump?
Senator, thank you. One quick correction for the record. There's 280 NV investigations. I gave the incorrect number to Senator Hawley. Thank you.
Understood.
As far as a lot of your statement, I disagree with it, and I'm happy to address it. But the only way, generally speaking, an individual is terminated at the FBI is if they have violated their oath of office, violated the law, or failed to uphold the standards that we need them to have at the FBI.
So those who say that they've been fired because of working on investigations into President Trump are lying or misrepresenting?
Well, those matters are alleged in litigation, which is ongoing, so I can't comment on those specifically.
Could you comment on why you fired former acting FBI Director Driscoll?
I can't because it's ongoing litigation.
Could you say now definitively under oath that the rank and file agents who were assigned to work January 6 cases will not be terminated because that's what they were assigned to do?
I've said it before and I've said it again. Your case assignment, as I was given case assignments when I was a young prosecutor, does not dictate your career or your termination.
Thank you. Then let me go to the appropriations question. In May, you testified before the subcommittee on which I serve, defending the president's request that we slash the FBI's budget by about $500 million. The day before, you testified the opposite in front of the House. Where are we in terms of the budget request? Senator Graham earlier said if you're requesting more funding for more agents, let us know. We're nearing the end of the fiscal year. In front of the committee on which I serve here in the Senate, your request was for a reduction of hundreds of millions of dollars. Where are we?
Where we are in the budget cycle is we at the FBI are in support of the president's budget, and we are in support of eliminating waste, fraud, and abuse. We've already identified tens of millions of dollars of duplicative contracts that the FBI was spending on software and private sector engagements. We've also identified duplicative workloads. So we are transitioning those folks out of doing the same thing twice over and into the field. And that's my focus right now. And the move of the FBI headquarters is also going to save the FBI $3.5 billion in the American taxpayers. So we're focused on eliminating waste, fraud, and abuse. And as I told Senator Graham, I'll go back and talk to my team, and if we need more, we'll let you know.
Are you planning any additional reductions in force, Director?
No.
How many vacancies are you currently trying to fill within the agency?
In terms of the 1811 ranks, there's a few hundred open vacancies that we have funded. And so we're filling all of those with our hybrid 1811 program and our new recruitment program. And I think a lesser amount of IAs and SOS.
So if hundreds of agents have retired or taken the fork in the road offer, and you have vacancies, but you're requesting 500 million less, how does having fewer FBI agents help you tackle violent crime and address our national security issues?
Just to put it in
and
perspective,
cybersecurity
Senator,
issues?
sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. If we had this 500 million, we've done the math. It would take us 14 years to onboard every vacancy that's on the books currently at the FBI because we can't hire these folks and train them overnight. It's a years-long process. So we are currently focused on recruiting the best and filling the positions to the best of our needs. And we, even if we had this extra money, wouldn't be able to hire them overnight. We're looking for where the need is greatest, where in the country we need to send them, and how we can change the training requirements, which is why I'm thrilled to have police officers. They might not have a college degree, but they got the street smarts and the cop smarts to become FBI agents, and that's what we want.
Let me turn to Section 702.
Yes, sir.
When you testified in front of the CJS subcommittee, we talked about this issue. You told me you were in favor of reauthorizing FISA Section 702 when it expires next year, so long as the reforms implemented last year, reforms like better training for agents and real consequences for inappropriate searches of Americans' communications, were maintained. You also said that you had some ideas about how to make Section 702 better going forward. Can you give me an update on the FBI's implementation of these reforms and the direction you think it should go?
Absolutely. I think you're referring to the query process, and if you're not, let me know. But any instance of abuse or mistakes that were made in the query process have now been changed. It used to be you can make multiple mistakes and continue to access the query database system. I've changed that. If you make a mistake, you're immediately sidelined, a review is conducted. And if it was an actual mistake, i.e., there should have been S on the end of that name and there wasn't, then we put you back in. But we have to review those matters. So that's happening. And if there was an intentional mistake, you have no more access to the 702 query system and its database. So we've also done an audit of the entire 702 system and the query databases. And now we are nearly 100% of the audit. And I think we found one or two, I'll have to get back to you, quote unquote mistakes within that system, which are currently being reviewed.
Thank you. You had told me in May that you'd send me updated statistics about the Section 702 searches of Americans' data. I haven't received it. When will I get that?
I'll work with my team to get that to you, Senator.
And frankly, in May, when you were testifying that you were implementing these reforms, you were also closing down the Office of Internal Auditing at the FBI. Now, that was the office created in the first Trump administration to improve the Bureau's compliance with Section 702. How is that working out? How can you continue to advocate for robust civil liberty protections, but shut down the office that was created to enforce those safeguards? Help me understand this.
Absolutely, Senator. This is a great example of sort of duplicative work. There was two divisions in the FBI working on this, and all we did was the inspection division, which is the leader in this query system and this audit system, has now been given the single source mandate to conduct these. So the OIA, its elimination is just taking folks who were working there and were experts in it and folded in under the inspection division, and then taking other folks that we didn't need because we had enough manpower and pushing them elsewhere in the FBI.
I'm concerned about the rise in threats against members of our judiciary. What are you
Yes, sir.
doing with the U.S. Marshal Service to help protect our federal judges and with state and local judicial systems to help provide some of the expertise of the FBI in protecting them as well?
I share your concern, Senator. We have 35 open investigations, 17 against federal judges, and the remainder against state court judges and threats that they have received. And as you know, federally, there's a specific statute which prohibits that. So we are working up those cases and referring them to prosecution where we can meet the threshold for evidence.
In your written testimony, you referenced how counter-UAS legislation expires and we need to resolve the conflict in jurisdiction and authority. I agree, this is an urgent concern. I have heard from state and local law enforcement about it, from the folks responsible for major events, whether it's sports or concerts or public events. Given the tragic increase in political violence, I'm very concerned about the misuse of drones and the potential of there being a catastrophic event. What could we do to address this challenge?
Well, obviously, reauthorizing the capabilities that we have under the Counter UAS program. But just to highlight what the FBI is specifically doing, we've been given the mandate to work with DHS to secure not just the Club World Cup that we had, by the way, which occurred in 32 matches across the country without any significant incident, which we're proud of, and we're taking that model for the next World Cup and also the Olympics. But the reason I bring that up is because we pushed out our counter UAS programs to address the security needs, and that's where our focus is on events like that.
Mr. Director, thank you for your testimony. I look forward to working on actually solving criminal problems and reducing the extent to which what we're going back and forth about is more political and partisan point scoring and more actually solving crimes for the American people.
Yes, sir.
Senator Kennedy.
Mr. Director, you and the FBI, working with state and local law enforcement officials in Utah, have caught the assassin of Mr. Charlie Kirk. Is that right?
We have a suspect, yes, sir.
And you did that within 48 hours, did you not?
33 hours.
33 hours. Congratulations. We've had other political assassinations. Back in June, an assassin assassinated Representative Melissa Hoffman, Mr. Hoffman, Senator John Hoffman, and Mrs. Hoffman in Minnesota. You and the FBI and Minnesota state and local law enforcement officials caught the assassin within 48 hours, did you not?
I believe that timeline's correct, Senator.
Congratulations. Sometimes we miss the forest for the trees. Good work. Did Mr. Kirk's assassin act alone?
As I've said since the beginning, Senator, it is very much an ongoing investigation, and I can't speak to the state charges. That's for the state to address on their own, but we are providing them with the same investigatory findings reporting the department. And as I noted to Senator, I believe it was Cornyn or Hawley, that there are a number of individuals that are currently being investigated and interrogated, and a number yet to be investigated and interrogated specific to that chat room. So we are very much in our ongoing posture of investigation.
So others could have been involved?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I asked you this last time you were here. Cash, you remember Mr. Peter Strzok and Ms. Lisa Page?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Strzok was an FBI agent. Ms. Page was an FBI lawyer. They were both very aggressive anti-Trump political activists who allowed their political opinions to affect their work at the FBI. Is that a fair statement?
I believe their text messages and their testimony that was secured by the OIG and DOJ speak for themselves.
In fact, Mr. Strzok and Ms. Page were having an extramarital affair, and at one point, Ms. Page texted Mr. Strzok, quote, "Trump's not ever going to be president, right? Right?" And Mr. Strzok replied, "No, he won't. We will stop it," end quote.